The rumble of diesel generators mixes with the smell of smoke and fish at the edge of the Great Lake of Cambodia, where hundreds of families are camped in makeshift tents. It's January, just before the full moon, the height of the annual fish run in the largest freshwater lake in Southeast Asia. Families congregate at the lake's edge for days at a time, where they barter for the larger catches. Or they head out on their own small boats and throw nets to capture a few kilos of fish. Men carry bamboo baskets of fish to the shallow shoreline, where they stomp with their feet to remove fish scales and guts and flush with the lake water. Higher up the bank, women and children squat beside mounds of tiny fish, chopping off fish heads and separating bodies and heads to process for sale or for the family. This is one of the largest inland fisheries in the world, and it feeds some of the poorest people in the world. And it's set in one of the world's most rapidly changing areas. The Mekong River starts high on the Tibetan Plateau in China and flows through Burma, Laos, Thailand, and Cambodia before fanning across its broad delta in Vietnam. Along the lowest reaches of the Mekong Basin in Cambodia and Vietnam, USAID-sponsored research is helping to chart a course towards sustainability in a region that's rich in natural resources and stricken by poverty. Robert Pomeroy, a professor of agricultural resource economics at the University of Connecticut, leads research in the lower Mekong Basin for USAID's AquaFish Collaborative Research Support Program, or CRISP for short. Recognizing the shared fishery in the lower Mekong Basin, the AquaFish CRISP is bringing together researchers from the U.S., Cambodia, and Vietnam to build opportunities to increase food, income, and employment in the region. Fish is a staple food here, and fishing is a way of life for millions of the poorest residents. Much has been written about the decline of iconic species such as the Mekong giant catfish, the largest freshwater fish in the world. But the AquaFish's team's interest is in much smaller fish, the so-called trash fish that make up the lion's share of the fish harvested from the lower Mekong Basin.
Traditionally, small fish have been called low value or trash fish, and what we're trying to do is actually get away from that, because one of the things we're learning is these small fish aren't low value and they're not trash. They're extremely important. That's one of the things that we've learned in this project. A large part of what we're doing really is focusing on two aspects. The small-scale fishery, really small fish, which is used both for food security for people, especially poor people, as both a fish and as a processed product, has been a traditional food source for centuries. And what's happened now as aquaculture has grown, especially in Cambodia and Vietnam, this small-sized fish has now been being used for feed, for snakehead and for catfish. And the impact of that is on poor people who now don't have access to a very cheap, inexpensive, high-protein product. And so we have these conflicts now occurring between human uses of this product for food and aquaculture uses for carnivorous fish, which essentially are sold to export markets.
So the challenge is to formulate a fish feed that depends far less on fish as protein, and to develop processing and food safety standards for human consumption of these underappreciated small-size fish. And the pressure is on. In 2005, the Cambodian government put a moratorium on aquaculture of snakehead, one of the most lucrative farm fish in the region, to help protect small-size fish as a traditional food source for people. Sonam, director of Cambodia's Inland Fisheries Research and Development Institute, is the host country lead for the AquaFish CRISP in the region. He's identified more than 200 species of small-sized fish in the lower Mekong Basin and sees the importance of managing the fishery sustainably.
Our colleague also working on trial of a formulated feed for snakehead, which has been developed successfully in the lab. And now it is a good time that this technology bring to the farmer for trial in the future in order to replace at least 50% of the small size fish or low value fish in the Mekong Delta.
It takes 4 to 5 kilograms of small size fish to yield just 1 kilogram of snakehead. You can feed a lot of people with 4 to 5 kilos of fish, Sonam said. To reduce the amount of small fish going to fish meal, AquaFish Crisp researchers at Canto University are developing plant-based feed for snakehead at every stage from larva to harvestable adult. And they're working with local fish farmers and feed producers to help increase the use of plant-based feeds for aquaculture and to protect the small-sized fish as food for local people. And researchers in Cambodia are developing ways to add value to the small-sized fish harvested during the annual flood cycle of the lower Mekong Basin. As the flooded forests drain, the fishing season begins on the Tonle Sap. Large wooden barrage structures are erected at the mouths of tributaries to funnel small fish into nets and awaiting barges. Bag nets scoop up fish for delivery to buyers, who in turn sell to families and small-scale processors. Buyers quickly sort the catch by size and species. They're looking for particular fish to use to make prehok, the fermented fish paste that's a traditional favorite in Cambodia. The tiny silver fish are bartered during the short fishing season and preserved for the rest of the year in giant clay pots of prehok. Keo Sochivi, the Deputy Director General of Cambodia's Fisheries Administration, works with local producers, mostly women, to help them improve the quality and safety of their fish products. Fishing is the way of life throughout the lower Mekong Basin and has been for millennia. On the banks of the Mekong River, the city of Chau Doc has erected a 90-foot sculpture of the giant Mekong catfish, encircled by 9 smaller fish. Another older illustration of the connection of fish to people is etched into the stone walls of the ancient temples at Angkor Wat, not far from the banks of the Tonle Sap Great Lake in Cambodia. Images carved 1,000 years ago show people fishing in small boats, tossing nets, sorting and cleaning and bartering for fish. The AquaFish Crisp researchers and those who live in the region and those who come there to work are working together to ensure this long history of the people and the fish of the Mekong Delta will continue for another 1,000 years.